Hello, everyone. Semi-retired Bob here. I talk about the carnivore diet, all things related to the carnivore diet, and miscellaneous odds and ends. Such a treat I have for you today. Our special guest today is Chris, the owner, president, and general guy at KetoChow. So for those that don't know you, Chris, would you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know what's going on out there in Salt Lake?
Yeah, I am definitely a general guy. That's absolutely true. In fact, my LinkedIn, I changed my title on LinkedIn to Wrangler. That way, I get less unsolicited emails about stupid stuff. I should have done that years ago. Anyway, I created KetoChow a couple of years ago. So now we have a couple different things with KetoChow. There's the actual KetoChow product, which is a meal replacement shake designed for a keto diet. I'm an engineer. I like to do stuff that is essential and not worry about the stuff that's more floofy and frivolous. I don't get along very well with designers because I want the stuff done really well and cheap and simple, and they want to make it look pretty. So, but anyway, so I'm a bit of an essentialist. I started a keto diet. I wanted to be able to get the right nutrition without having to go through a lot of rigmarole. And so I created that. And then also along the way, we saw a need for super, I guess you could say clean electrolytes. So that don't have any color, that don't have any sweetener, that don't have any caffeine, that it's literally just electrolytes. We came out with a couple of different ones, some that have higher potassium, some that have higher magnesium, one that's more sodium if you're doing lots of extended fasting. Dr. Ken Berry looked at the stuff that we were doing and he's like, hey, I want you to make a all-in-one mineral supplement that has all the stuff that people might need, like all the iodine and chromium and molybdenum. I never remember how to pronounce that element correctly. Anyway, but all of that stuff, all of those, and I think it was that he was tired of taking like 6 different supplements every day and just wanted one with everything. So we created the daily minerals at his request or behest. And we have that as well. So yeah, it started off as just kind of this thing that I created a shake because I'm lazy. And then it turned into we're just doing different things to help support a low carbohydrate ketogenic way of eating.
Okay. And in looking back through your past you have a huge video library on your YouTube channel. I noticed that you did 100 days of KetoChow experiment 3 years ago. Can you talk about for just a minute how that came about and what the basic results of doing that for 100 days were?
Yes. So the 100-day experiment was. Now, you may or may not know who Dave Feldman is. He's kind of Mr. Cholesterol, does a lot of self-experimentation to find out what high numbers of cholesterol actually mean, because there's a lot of discussion as to whether or not it's high cholesterol is a problem or not in all individuals, or if it's not a problem in some. And anyway, he does a lot of self-experimentation, and he got a lot of questions from people that wanted to know what does like monounsaturated fat do to the lipid system, the cholesterol, the triglycerides, all that. What does polyunsaturated fat do? What does saturated fat do? Because whenever you have a natural fat, like you eat a ribeye or a New York strip or whatever, you're going to end up with a mixture of different fats in there. There's polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and saturated fats. And the conventional wisdom is that saturated fat is bad and polyunsaturated fat is good. And a lot of that comes down to, it seems that saturated fat, you mostly get that from animals. And some interests out there like to discourage the eating of animals or animal sourced foods. And it seems that coming down on, this is my perception, it seems that coming down on saturated fat is a proxy for promulgating a plant only diet, if that is a roundabout enough way of saying it. Whereas polyunsaturated fats, you tend to get those from industrial seed oils like canola and soybean and things like that. Those tend to make LDL cholesterol go down. And the conventional wisdom that I won't get into the veracity of those claims or not, but the conventional wisdom is that lower LDL is a good thing. And so people would ask Dave Feldman, hey, what do different fats do? I had a kind of a unique situation where, okay, so KetoChow, I didn't really explain this very well earlier, I'm sorry. KetoChow is designed to give you a third of your daily nutrients. Because once again, I'm lazy, I'm an engineer, and I wanted to just be able to have a food that was, I didn't have to think about, I didn't have to calculate macros or worry about selenium deficiencies or anything like that. I just wanted, this is everything I need except for the fat, and you add in heavy cream, melted butter, avocado oil, whatever it is that you want. We have a new one that we've been mixing up with beef tallow, our core flavor, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, you can mix in whatever fat you want, and then you have a third of your daily nutrients. So much so that you could live off of KetoChow for several days, several weeks, several months, years, if you wanted to. Now, I'm not advocating that people actually do that, but it's designed for that edge case so that if you want to use it for 1 or 2 meals or 3 or 4 or whatever, say you got dental surgery and you can't eat steak. Well, first off, I'm very sorry for your loss, but you also, there's something that you could use rather than putting your steak through a blender, and that's KetoChow. So I've got this nutritionally complete stuff that I have a variable I can change on it, and that's the type of fat and the amount of fat. But everything else, all the other nutrition is covered. So I came up with this crazy experiment that, number one, I was going to demonstrate that, hey, I've got this product. I claim it's nutritionally complete. Let's put that to the test. You don't really see this very often with consumer packaged goods, that the people in charge of formulating it actually live on it. But I thought that would be an interesting experiment. And then along with that, I was going to be changing the type of fat every 2 weeks to see what that would do to my blood work. So, and wasn't just me. There was a really nice lady named Beverly who was also doing the experiment at the same time. She's a lot shorter than I am and was like 20 years older than I am. And so we were going to be getting different results, but the results kind of tracked along with each other. The short of it is, number one, neither of us died. That's a good first result. Number two, we had very favorable blood test results from using KetoChow in general. Number three, let's get into the different types of fat. When we used heavy cream, our HDL was at good levels. Our triglycerides were at low levels. I didn't really care about the LDL, but it was just there. And neither of us had a nutritional deficiency. When we switched over to using avocado oil, which is mostly a monounsaturated fat, things kept on going just great. They're tracking along just fine. When we tried using butter, butter actually turned out to give the most favorable results of everything that we tried during that experiment. And then, oddly enough, when right after we did the avocado oil section, we reduced the amount of avocado oil we were using and added in a tablespoon a day of MCT oil. Which MCT oil, if you're familiar with a ketogenic diet or a low carb diet, is one of those things that people often use because it promotes production of ketones. It goes right into the liver, turns into ketones. Hey, you have high ketone numbers. And for a lot of people, that is believed to be beneficial. When we switched over to reducing the avocado oil by a little bit and adding in the MCT oil, both of us had a dramatic reduction in HDL, which is universally considered a bad thing. You do not want your HDL to go down. That's not considered good. Both of us had a significant increase in our triglycerides. Mine doubled to 200, which is universally considered a bad thing as well. So because of that, I do not really use MCT oil a lot at all. I have a lot of bottles of MCT oil that are like 4 years old at this point that I probably should just throw away because I'm never going to use them. And we also did another part of the experiment was using, it was grapeseed oil. We also, for a different part, used, what's it called? Macadamia nut oil, which has a really high polyunsaturated. No, sorry, it was grapeseed oil. Macadamia nut oil has a very high monounsaturated. Yeah, I got these mixed up every once in a while. Anyway, grapeseed oil was terrible, and it actually caused my plantar fasciitis to come back, which indicates inflammation, even though I had ketones of about 5.5 the entire time I was doing the grapeseed oil. So, based on those results, I pretty much only use animal-sourced fats anymore, primarily butter if I can. I don't use MCT oil, and I also really, really would highly recommend not using a polyunsaturated fat such as grapeseed, canola, or soybean oil ever for anything.
Okay. You'll find that most of the people watching this today will agree with you on the seed oils because I have preached continuously about the evils of seed oil. One quick thing that I want to cover before we go on to the actual supplements that you sell. My people are primarily carnivores. I do have some keto people. And the first question they're going to ask me is that if I'm using KetoChow with butter or coconut oil or some other no carb fat, how many carbs are there in an average serving of KetoChow?
Okay, so, well, this actually brings up an important question of, is like the KetoChow shakes, would they even be considered carnivore? So I'll answer your question about the carbohydrates first. So number one, most flavors of KetoChow have, well, we have different versions. So as an engineer, I'm constantly improving the formula. And every time I make a change to it, I change the version number so frankly, I can keep track of it because it's just always changing. The newest version that we have is version 2.8. The change between 2.7 and 2.8 is we figured out that we didn't need to use as much acacia gum. Now, acacia gum's an interesting fiber, and fiber is an interesting word to use as well because in 2018, the FDA decided that acacia gum wasn't fiber. And then in 2019, they decided that it was fiber. So for a while on our packaging, acacia gum was just a total carbohydrate, but was not fiber. And now it's fiber and part of the total carbohydrates. But we also, about the same time as the whole pandemic thing happened, the global supply of acacia gum started to dwindle. So we revised the formula so that we could use less of it. And the thing that acacia gum does, actually kind of interesting. Number one, it allows fat to mix with water. It's an emulsifier. So when you use melted butter and warm water in a blender with KetoChow, the butter doesn't separate out. And when you use, say, melted beef tallow rather, in warm water with our KetoChow core, it doesn't separate out. It just stays in a liquid, provided that the water was warm enough and that it was melted and you stirred it up properly. Acacia gum also, it is a carbohydrate. It gets metabolized not by you, but by the bacteria in your digestive system. It's actually the same thing that rumen does in a ruminant, that it breaks down the carbohydrates, kicks out fats, and then the cow eats, or whatever, the ruminant, eats the stuff that the bacteria is making and the bacteria itself. Cows don't actually eat grass. They just live off the stuff that comes out of it. You know that. But so the acacia gum, it goes in as a carbohydrate. It doesn't raise blood sugar, and it actually does contribute to calories in your diet in the form of butyrate and other short chain fats after the bacteria has had its way with it in your digestive system. So for people who are doing total carbohydrates, acacia gum is one of those weird things that some people count it and some people don't. But the quantity, most of the, okay, so I explained the different versions. Version 2.8 has about 3 grams of total carbohydrates per serving. Version 2.7, the one that has the higher acacia gum, has around 7 to 8 grams. And when all is said and done, the actual non-fiber carbohydrates in a serving of KetoChow it's around 1 gram for everything but chocolate and chocolate peanut butter. Those have higher carbohydrates because of the chocolate and the peanut butter. So, yeah. Now, okay, then the next question was, would KetoChow be considered carnivore? Well, that acacia gum there, that can be a sticking point for some people. For some people, they're like, no, I don't use any plant products at all. Like, you probably are familiar with Amber O'Hearn. Had a wonderful conversation with her actually about our beef soup-based KetoChow. She is an obligate carnivore. At least the last time I talked to her, she was. And she just doesn't eat any plant products at all. She had a run-in where she tried some psyllium husk powder, and it was really, really bad for her. I asked her if she would be willing to try out our beef protein version. She tried it out, and she said that she didn't have a problem with it at all. So it kind of gets down to why you're doing carnivore. KetoChow may not, the shake may not work for you at all, even in cooking. Or it might. Really depends on why you're doing it and what sort of health benefits you're getting from it. If you're willing to introduce something new that may or may not cause you problems, but may simplify your life a little bit. I'm hesitant to ever recommend carnivores to try KetoChow just because I don't know why they're doing carnivore. So I always err on the side of caution, and I'm a terrible salesman.
Thank you for that, Chris. That was an actually very, very good explanation that my people will be able to look at and go, okay, I'm willing to try something, or no, I'm not willing to try that. Because as you said, many different people have many different reasons for why they're doing carnivore. So I had a run-in where, they always talk about cravings go away after a little while on this carnivore diet thing. I kept my cravings really strong for about 8 months. And then I thought, well, I don't remember exactly who I was listening to, it was probably Nurse Cindy, but I don't really remember. But they were talking about how being deficient in a mineral could actually trigger cravings. So I thought, well, I have this bottle of KetoChow Daily Minerals that I've been using just as an electrolyte supplement, so I wasn't using it every day. And I switched over to using it every day just to see if I was deficient in something. And now, instead of sitting around at night thinking about maybe cheating with a Papa John's pizza, which I never did, by the way, in the entire year I've been doing this, but I thought about it every night. But then when I started doing your daily minerals every day, the thought of ordering a Papa John's pizza actually made me a little sick to my stomach. So I think I was deficient in something. I have no idea what it was, but the daily minerals solved that. So could you go ahead and give us a quick explanation of, you've already said that you made these with Dr. Berry's, but how the daily minerals came to be, and then I'm just going to open the floor up. You can talk about any of your other electrolyte products that you want, and then if you miss something, I will ask you about that after you're done.
Okay, so the daily minerals, yeah, like I said earlier, I think it really is just that Dr. Berry was tired of doing an iodine and a magnesium and a manganese and selenium, all those different supplements. I think he just wanted to simplify his own life. And he knew that the stuff that we were making, it's literally just minerals. We kind of joke around that people will ask, hey, will this cause a problem for the daily minerals? Like, is it a problem I left it in a car? Or is it a problem that it's been sitting on my counter for a couple of weeks? Does it require refrigeration? Does heat damage it? And we always just say, look, it's just minerals. Like, they're not going anywhere. They even have an expiration date on the bottom because we're legally required to put a best by date. But the container will turn to powder and billow away in dust before anything is going to happen to the minerals. They've been around since the solar system was formed. How about that? So you're not going to harm them by cooking with them. You're not going to, like, I also joke that people say how, if I cook with them, is it going to cause a problem? And I just say we recommend keeping them below 7,000 degrees. And they're like, I'm like, I know that's a joke, but seriously, you're not going to hurt them. It's not like vitamins. Vitamins are enzymes, for lack of a better explanation, and those are affected by heat. Minerals are not affected by heat. And we also chose very specific kinds of the minerals. For instance, the stuff that we use for our magnesium is a magnesium chloride, which is what you get from naturally weathered magnesium sources going through the food chain, ending up in water. That's how magnesium ends up. You can make magnesium malate and magnesium glycinate and other, where you chelate an amino acid onto the magnesium. Or you can do it the cheap way, which is you take magnesium and you combine it with oxygen and you make white paint and you sell that as magnesium, and humans can't actually use it. If you're ever looking at a product, like a magnesium supplement specifically, and it has on the ingredients magnesium oxide, just close the browser, set it down. Don't even bother with that, because magnesium oxide is really good for bacteria. It is not good for us. We just don't use it. Ruminants might be able to do something with magnesium oxide, but we can't. It just doesn't work. I think it's like a 1 or 2% conversion rate or uptake rate off of magnesium oxide. So yeah, Dr. Berry gave us a lot of input as far as what we needed to use in there, and the amounts as well. And when we were coming up with it, he actually would have preferred there to be more sodium. It has 1,000 milligrams of potassium, 600 milligrams of sodium. This is per serving, which a serving is a tablespoon, which is kind of a lot. 400 milligrams of magnesium, chromium, zinc, manganese, molybdenum, selenium, iodine, copper, boron. And like I said, he wanted to actually have there be more sodium, but that would have required us to double the serving size. So we talked with him a lot and said, hey, here's a compromise. How about we lower the amount of sodium, just put in the minerals that are more difficult to get, like potassium, like magnesium, things like that, and just assume that people are going to put salt on their food. Because salt's an easy one. Sodium's, that's easy. But the other ones are more difficult. So we ended up with, if we would have put more sodium in, the bottle would have held half as many servings, and it would have cost just as much to ship. And we figured that this was a good way to save people money and make it last longer for them. And it just seemed like a win-win-win all around. As far as the deficiency that you were talking about, that absolutely sounds like a normal thing that we run into all the time with people. The daily minerals don't taste good. If you just take a shot of them, like, it is bitter. It tastes really bad. And now some of that is even the copper. And there's a slight blue tint to it. And depending on which batch you got, it's a light green or it's kind of a darker blue color. It's really interesting how it changes from batch to batch. But that copper flavor in particular, I personally don't like at all. And what I find is that for me, I'll get a 16-ounce water bottle and I'll put obviously water in there, duh. And then I'll put in a serving, so a full tablespoon of the daily minerals. And then I'll add some citrus, either a packet of True Lemon or just some lemon juice. And again, if you're carnivore and you can't do citrus, I've got another solution for you in just a second. But and for me, the citrus cuts all the weirdness and the bitterness. I'm not adding anything sweet to it, and I don't drink it right away. I'll usually have that water bottle, and I'll take like 2 or 3 hours to just sip on it every once in a while. And we've found that as people consistently use it, it seems, I'm not going to make any health claims here because I never make health claims because I figure it's unnecessary. It seems that people's bodies start to identify that as a source of essential nutrients, and they will start to crave the daily minerals, and sometimes it will even start to taste good to them despite the bitterness and everything else. I think this is the same way that people don't like having animal organs a lot of times when they first start off on their keto or carnivore or low carb journey. And as time goes on, they may, if they try things like, pancreas and heart and things like that, they may start to develop a taste for it, or, roasted bone marrow. Most people don't eat roasted bone marrow anymore, and you kind of have to develop a taste for it. But once your body has identified that as this is a good source of nutrients, it seems like it changes around our cravings. And different people are going to have your results may vary, but we see that a lot in the comments. So just like you said, you stopped craving the pizza. We have people who start off with the daily minerals and they can barely choke them down. And after a couple of weeks of using it, they're just drinking it. They're adding it to all their water and just drinking it. So usually my wife, okay, so I talked about different ways of taking it because again, it doesn't taste good. My wife likes to put somewhere between a teaspoon and a half of teaspoon into a big bottle of water. And that right there really hits about the mineral concentration that tastes good for her. Because like at our house, we have a reverse osmosis system to get rid of all the chlorine and stuff like that that's in our water. But it also, the water doesn't taste amazing at that point. And adding in some of those minerals in a low enough concentration to just kind of, oh, hey, I like this, but then also not overpowering, that works really well for her. And so she'll do a serving, the 15 milliliters or the 1 tablespoon, throughout the entire day in multiple things of water. Now, Dr. Barry, on the other hand, sometimes he squirts it in his mouth, sometimes he squirts it in his coffee. I think his favorite way of using the daily minerals or any of our electrolyte supplements is he puts it on his meat when he's cooking it. Because again, you're not going to destroy the minerals. In fact, you might find that the saltiness and the mineral flavors really work well with the meat. So maybe try a little bit at first. You don't want to ruin a steak by coating it in magnesium. That would probably be a bad thing. But adding a little bit to some ground beef or to a steak and things like that, that's a really good way to start using it and getting more of those minerals. Our other minerals actually work well for that as also. We were at a dinner once with some famous people in the keto community. I'm not going to name drop, it's not necessary, but it was at this really fancy steakhouse and there was no salt on the table, which was an atrocity because that steak needed salt bad. And for the amount of money that we were paying for those steaks, it really should have been properly salted. Like it should have had like a crust of salt on the outside of it. But we suffered through it, not realizing that we actually had a bottle of our fasting drops in one of our backpacks right there with us. Because our fasting drops is, for the most part, it's a liquid salt. If you've ever made soul water where you mix up a really heavy concentration of salt to the point where it's super saturated and it won't dissolve any more of the salt, that's kind of how the fasting drops are. Our electrolyte drops, it's higher potassium. It's kind of a 50-50 split of sodium and potassium with a good amount of magnesium in there because you kind of need all three. And then our magnesium drops, my wife kept on getting cramps in her legs at night. And she's like, hey, we've got these electrolytes that we're making. Why don't we just make one that's just magnesium? Well, it does have some potassium and sodium in it, but for the most part, it's just magnesium. And again, magnesium does not taste good. It's very bitter. It's almost like a fire going down your throat. But if you have a headache and you need minerals right then, the benefit of having it in solution like that is that it's going to absorb very, very quickly. And it's also not coming along with any weird flavors. It's not coming along with any sweeteners. It's not coming along with any caffeine or other additives. So you can add it to whatever drink you want. Or I've literally been in the airport before with a headache, and we have these little pocket flasks that we like to keep in our backpack, and I just filled up the lid with it and just took a shot, and it was terrible, but my headache was gone within minutes. We did recently introduce a powdered encapsulated form of our electrolyte drops and the magnesium drops. So they're not drops anymore. Just for people who don't want the flavor. The difference between those is because it is in a capsule, which has to dissolve in your stomach. Then it has to hydrate. Then it has to be absorbed. The encapsulated the capsules take a bit longer to take effect. So they're just as effective. It just takes longer to absorb and everything like that. Did you ask me?
Okay. Well, thank you for all of that. So, what types of situations? Because let's say somebody's using daily minerals every day, like I do. To look to your point, I I started putting it in my first cup of coffee of the day, and it was not very good the first time I had it. In fact, the first couple of weeks, I'm like, man, what am I doing to myself? But my cravings went away, and like this morning, just to, because I knew I was going to talk to you, it's like my first cup of coffee tastes normal now. I mean, this is the way coffee is supposed to taste with a full serving of the daily minerals in my 1 8-ounce cup of coffee.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, I tried because I'd watched a Dr. Barry and Nisha video where she said he's just a wimp. I just sometimes would just take the whole shot of the daily minerals, just shoot it down. I tried that the very first time I tried daily minerals, and I realized that Nisha is much tougher than I am because it put me on the ground. It was awful. It was just absolutely terrible. But anyway, to what I was getting, if we're already using daily minerals, what types of situations would we use either the electrolyte drops or the tablets? How much more of that do we need, say, sitting at home in front of the TV versus being out in the sun all day working?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we get that a lot. The problem is there's not a good, simple answer that's going to work with everybody. Electrolytes, you see on recipes, salt to taste. That's kind of what those other electrolytes are. That's their usage case. If you feel like you need more sodium or you feel like you need more potassium or magnesium, try them and see if it works for you is unfortunately the best recommendation I can give, but it's also the perfect recommendation. Use it as you see fit. And it is going to be a bit of a little bit of a learning curve for you to figure out when I feel this way, that means I need more magnesium. And this is about how much I need of it. And it's a little bit of you kind of have to trial and error, test it out on yourself and see what works for you. Because I also joke around that I wear a size 10.5 shoe, which has nothing to do with anything, but what I need isn't what you need. And so for someone who, like my mom goes through the magnesium drops like they're going out of style. In fact, it was her birthday a couple days ago, and I should probably get her another couple bottles of it because that's what she wants every single year is more of the magnesium, because otherwise she gets really bad leg cramps. And so for her, even if she's using the daily minerals, she still needs magnesium on top of that. Now, another way of saying it is the daily minerals, the design of that is let's replace all of the stuff that is likely deficient in a modern diet due to mineral depletion in soils. If you're getting good solid nutrition from some other source and you know you have those covered, you may not need the daily minerals. And then when the other electrolytes, again, it's just kind of a see what works for you, see what you feel like you're low on, and try them out and see if it makes you feel better. When people get the keto flu, when they're first starting off, and it's just because they're low on sodium, being able to identify that I don't feel good, and that's because I'm low on sodium, that's a kind of a crucial thing that people need to kind of develop for themselves, and so they can recognize how that feels and what the solution is going to be. So yeah, it's a convoluted answer, and I don't have a good simple Bob should use this much of blah 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 and that much of yada yada yada. You just kind of have to test them out and see what really works for you personally. And it's kind of a spot treatment. So like you need more potassium, use that one. You need more magnesium, use that one. Whereas the daily minerals is more of a base load.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all of that. Before I let you go, everybody, of course, it's going to be underneath your picture about here, your KetoChow YouTube channel, plus your primary KetoChow website for ordering products. Where else can we find you on social media besides YouTube?
So a lot of our stuff is up on YouTube. We do some stuff with TikTok, which I'm not really the target demographic for that, not being a 14-year-old girl, but apparently there's lots of cool DIY stuff on there as well. But you can also find KetoChow on Reddit. We have an entire subreddit devoted to KetoChow. But the interesting thing about the YouTube channel is there's a lot of stuff on there above and beyond just marketing stuff. I didn't create this company intentionally, and I didn't create this company to make money. It all just kind of it came out of my own desire to make my own journey easier. And I still absolutely need all the help I can get. So one of the things that we do on a regular basis is every quarter we actually do a meetup here in Utah where we're at. And we used to do a conference, low carb salt or keto Salt Lake. That's what we called it. And at the conference, we were bringing in a whole bunch of different speakers and whatnot. The aforementioned Amber O'Hearn was there at one of them, along with so many other people. But we found that it was a bit like drinking from the fire hose, number one. I was losing really a lot of money hosting those. The best way to make $1 million on a conference is start off with $2 million, which I did not start off with $2 million. But the saying holds true. So instead, we decided that instead of doing a big conference, that we ended up live streaming those for free anyway. The 3 times that we did them, we would just give up the pretense that we were even trying to sell tickets at all. We would bring in 1 or 2 speakers for a quarterly meetup. Fly them out to Salt Lake, do the whole song and dance, get interviews with them, take some pictures for their LinkedIn profile if they want to use it, and then broadcast it for free on our YouTube channel. And we kind of did a similar thing with Dr. Barry's Proper Human Diet Summit. We just straight up paid to have it broadcast so that everybody could watch it. And so you'll find those and more on our YouTube channel just for free, just to help people out. Because we want people to be able to find a way of eating that's suitable for them, that there may not be a lot of information out there compared with, I was stuck behind the guy for 12 Lights last night that had vegans live longer and eat vegan because I love animals or something like that. I'm like, okay. So we're just trying to get that other point of view out there, that this can be so beneficial for so many people. And I frankly don't care if you buy our product or not. Again, we didn't make this for the money. It is cool that we have a bunch of employees that have a livelihood now. But more than anything else, we just want people to be able to enjoy their health, whether they're buying stuff from us or not. So, hey, put salt on your meat and enjoy it.
Okay, well, thanks a bunch for being here today, Chris. Everybody go down in the comments and say thank you for Chris, because his time is very valuable, just like everybody else. So thank him for being here with us today. Don't forget, get out there, be 1% better today, folks. Today, tomorrow, every day. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.